All right, I'm back. Yes, I know I vanished for a while, but just like the upcoming Unreal Engine 5.6 release, I've been quietly cooking in the shadows. And now we're both making a comeback. Today's tutorial is all about how to build Unreal Engine 5.6 from source on Windows. That's right, 5.6 isn't officially out yet, but we're not waiting around. If you're impatient like me, or just curious to see what Epic's brewing before the rest of the world, this video is for you. Now, some of you patient folks out there might be thinking, why bother? Can't I just wait for the release? Fair question. But here's the deal. I work for a company that publishes Unreal Engine plugins on the Fab Store, and they want their plugin ready on day 0 when the new engine drops. The catch? Epic only allows you to submit plugins once the final version is officially released. So to stay ahead of the curve, we grab the source early, build it, test it, and make sure everything works before the launch day. And hey, if you're a Linux user, don't worry, I've got a separate video coming soon, just not today. Because building on Linux is like dating in your 40s, not complicated exactly, just different. We'll dive into more Unreal Engine 5.6 goodness over the coming months, so buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's get nerdy. So here we are. Before getting started, let's get a few things out of the way. The first thing is, although Unreal Engine is open source, it's not truly free software, and it comes with a EULA end user license agreement. So make sure to study the license before you start using it in order to familiarize yourself with the limitation that comes with it. And also the repository is not available to the public. That means you require to register an account with Epic and also ask for permission on GitHub to access it. For example, here, as you can see, when I enter the repository address, the URL, GitHub says this repository does not exist. But here, as you can see, I am signed in with my account, the same URL, and it's accessible to me. We'll learn how to basically go through that process and get access to the source code. But also the second thing is, in order to build Unreal Engine on Linux or on Windows, basically you need some prerequisites. We're going to go through that as well. I've already wrote a blog post. It is in my drafts. I'm going to publish it with the video. If you go through this, you should find the link to the video. I'm going to basically put the blog post link inside the video's description as well. And if you come here, basically you find the table of contents, and here you will find the prerequisites. Unreal Engine has a voracious appetite for disk space. That's why you need at least 500 gigabytes. As you can see here, I've already allocated a whole basically disk, NVMe disk, which is 500 gigabytes to this basically procedure that we're gonna take, and I formatted the drive. But we're gonna see after we build the engine source code, it's gonna be full. So that's the first thing that you need, but I highly recommend to basically get at least a drive with 1 terabyte space if you want to basically be comfortable using Unreal Engine in the future. Also, you need to download Git Bash for Windows. Basically, you can get the installer from here. Install it with the default settings. I'm not going to go through the installation. Once you have that, basically, you will see this icon. And here, if you type Git Bash, as you can see, it will basically, it is installed on my computer. Also, in addition to that, you need to obtain Microsoft Visual Studio Community version 2022, which is required for Unreal Engine. We're going to go through that, basically how to install it, because there are some components that are required to be installed. And also, additionally, if you want to add support for Android, because when you build Unreal Engine, by default, if it cannot find the required Android dependencies, it's not gonna be able to build for Android. So for Android, you need Android Studio, Android SDK, Android NTK, and Java Development Kit. And if you actually come here, build with Android support, I put an optional keyword there as well. So here, basically, there's a tutorial I did a few months back. And there are parts of this tutorial which, because that's a lengthy tutorial, I guess around 48 minutes or something like that, you don't have to go through everything. I've basically highlighted the parts that you need in order to install Android Studio, which is going to install Android SDK and NDK as well, and also Java Development Kit. So basically, for Android, you can basically go through this and learn it by yourself. I'm not gonna go through that either because I've already covered that. And just for Visual Studio, once you download the installer for Visual Studio Community, also I'm not gonna go through this because I've already have Visual Studio installed, but I'm gonna show you once the installer pops up what you can do basically to once you start the installer with Visual Studio, I'm gonna close this. You see here I've already have Visual Studio Community 2022 installed. If I go to more section here, there's import configuration. Where is that configuration? I've already basically included this in the post. If I click on this, it's gonna open it like this. It's on basically JSON file, but I can save this to my disk using save link as if I right click on it. And I'm gonna save it on desktop, Visual Studio 2022 VS config. And here inside the installer, I only have to import the configuration. I'm gonna browse for it. And then once it's selected, you click review details. And if you come here, it's just already basically selects all the required components for you because I've already have everything installed. Even if you go with the proceed with the default installation, you can always come back here and basically import that configuration. Here it's going to show you basically how much more space you require, but I already have everything set up. And Visual Studio might even warn you that some of these components are out of support, for example, .NET 6 or .NET 7, but these are all required for Unreal Engine with the current version at least to work. So ignore that message basically and install everything in the configuration file. So with this configuration file also, you should be able to build Unreal Engine 5.2, 5.3, 4, 5.5, and 5.6. So, and also I promised you I'm going to show you how to access Unreal Engine source code on GitHub. Basically, if you go to the documentation here, I believe, Epic in the document has like a lengthy documentation about accessing the source code, but the relevant part is here. Basically, if you go through all these steps, you should be able to install Unreal Engine. And also, if you go to the Epic launcher here, you see there is no Unreal Engine 5.6 available in binary format. Of course, in binary format, it's always less space is required. For example, here you see inside this drive is also around the same size as the other one, but I only basically have full of it, have half of it basically occupied. And here I already have like two versions of the engine. For example, the latest one, also it includes the source code as well. If I get like the size on the disk, it's probably less than 100 gigabytes, including the source code. So definitely you don't need to always install this from source, but yeah, it's around 50 gigabytes. But we see when we download the source and we start building, it will be like 10 times, almost 10 times. So let's go back and let's go to the repository. I assume you will follow this and basically you have everything set up already. Once you are inside the repository, you have to clone the source code. For cloning the source code, basically here, Also make sure to go to github.com/epicgames/Unreal Engine. You can go to this green button here. You can clone with HTTPS, you can clone with SSH. What is the difference? Basically, for HTTPS, you always have to enter your password. For example, let's try it. Let's go to drive D here. I usually create like a folder called OPT and put all my installations here. I'm gonna open a right click here. I'm gonna open a git bash here. It went to the other monitor. I'm gonna make this a bit bigger. Also, you can hold Control key and scroll if the font size is small. But anyway, let's make this even a bit bigger for you to see. I'm gonna type git clone HTTPS, the URL, and press enter. Once this happens, basically it went to the first monitor. It asks you to sign in with GitHub. I don't want to do that. Basically, I want to do it without signing in. Although it's gonna authenticate, it's gonna basically use authorization, but not using passwords. I would like to use SSH keys, which is more flexible. Any repository you are going to check out, it will be passwordless. But okay, let's cancel this. It asks for username, password. So I'm gonna cancel this and I'm gonna delete this folder because I want to clone it using SSH. In order to do that, I already have a SSH key set up inside users. My username is Mamadou. And here there's like a ssh.ssh folder. Here, I'm gonna rename this. Let's rename this one because I don't want to lose my keys and I don't want to share it with you because anyone basically has my private keys. If you can see my private keys, you can basically sign in with my username or password or whatever to GitHub. So I'm gonna just rename this, and once basically I come here, I'm gonna type git instead of git bash, type git GUI, which is going to basically open this a small window here. Here, if you click on help and show SSH key, and here it says no keys found because I basically renamed this folder and it does not exist, as you can see. So once you install git bash, you need to generate a key. I'm gonna generate a key. Then I'm gonna ask for password here. I'm gonna leave it empty for the sake of simplicity because every time you have to enter the password. So I'm gonna press OK. Again, it asks to basically confirm the password. I'm gonna press OK. And as you can see now, I have a key. This is basically my public key. You can share this with GitHub or anyone basically you want. But your private keys basically should not be shared. It's here inside this file, but the public key is here. So I'm gonna copy this to clipboard. Once you copied it, you go to your profile here and inside settings, you come here, it says SSH and GPG keys. And as you can see, I've already have a bunch of keys already set up because I have different computers, different operating system, and a lot of them, basically all of them, I'm using SSH to sign in on GitHub. Also, I have some GPG keys for signing, which is like, we don't need them. It's out of the scope of this tutorial. So for now, basically I click on new SSH key and I'm gonna paste it here. Oops, I think I didn't copy this. So I'm gonna select all. Probably we have to press Control A to select everything and copy to clipboard. Let's paste it. Yes, now it's here. It does not care about the extra space. It will trim it by itself. I'm gonna name it. For example, I'm gonna call it UE56 tutorial key. That's it. You just assign an arbitrary name to it and you add SSH keys. Once you have set it up, it says it has never been used. So now let's basically go back to GitHub. I'm gonna type GitHub Epic Games / Unreal Engine. And then I'm going to go to code, I'm going to go to SSH, and I'm going to clone it. As you can see, I will copy the URL. I go back to my folder here inside the OPT. Then I'm going to open another Git bash window, which again, it always goes to my first monitor. So here I'm going to type git clone the repository URL, and also I'm gonna type b branch, which because if you go to Unreal Engine, basically there are various branches like from Unreal Engine 4 up to 5.6 at the moment, which is the latest one. There is also a development one, and also in addition to that, there is UE5 main, which is the basically next branch. If you want access to the next version of the Unreal Engine, it's always here, and it's very, very active. For example, if you come here, if you look at the commits history, as you can see, it's very, very active, and they constantly push commits and changes here, but it's unstable. Sometimes you cannot even build it because there's a build issue or something. So I don't recommend using this one, but 5.6, basically they've created it like a week or at most 2 ago, but I think it's less than a week. Basically, if you go to 5.6, also this one is actively being worked on, but it's more stable, the code here. So we basically typed here git clone URL -b for branch. I'm gonna type 5.6, then I'm gonna type the repository, the folder name, which if I don't, basically it's going to be Unreal Engine. I can type UE 5.6 whatever, or any other name that you would like. But yeah, you can just leave it empty. It's gonna be Unreal Engine. Basically it uses the name of the repository as the name of the folder as well, but I will type it anyways. So once I do that, it should not ask for password because we already did set up the SSH keys, so there is no need for the password. It only asks because it says, hey, I don't know this host, this address, which means GitHub, which is this IP, as you can see here. If I make this a bit bigger, you can always see it. Let's see here. It says, I don't know, basically the authenticity of this host cannot be established. So you can come here inside your home folder. For me, it's mamadou.ssh. And once basically you see here, only there are 2 files. Once I accept it, the first time, it should only ask you the first time. The second time, if it changes, you're gonna give an error. This is a security feature because basically if someone wants to run a man-in-the-middle attack using the basically GitHub's credentials, it's gonna know, and basically it's going to block that access. It's gonna warn you, hey, something has changed. So you have to investigate and make sure basically you are connecting to the right server. Anyway, let's type yes. It says it's added to the list of known hosts. As you can see, a file is created here. And if I open it, there are some like gibberish things. You don't care about it, but don't change this either. But in the future, you can always, if you cannot connect or like something goes wrong, you can always delete this file and it will be regenerated for you. So it's fine to delete this file. Anyways, so as you can see, it takes some time for this process to be completed. And if we go back here, we see the folder, like there's a .git folder because I'm basically showing my hidden files on Windows, and it takes a while. It might take half an hour, it might take, depending on your basically connection speed. As you can see, I'm like around 80 to 19 megabytes per second, but it takes a while for this to be downloaded. This is the number of objects should be downloaded. These are the number of objects that are already downloaded, that have been downloaded. So it's around 15%. I'm gonna leave this for now. I will be fast forwarding the video, but it takes quite a while depending on your internet speed. So for now, let's let this go. Okay, picking up from where we left off, basically now the cloning process for the engine source code is finished. If we go back to the folder that contains the source code for Unreal Engine, we have the .git folder, as I've mentioned, and also which is of course hidden, but I have my hidden files shown inside the folder options. That's why I can see it, but also the source code for the engine. If we go back to this PC, as you can see, already like I guess 34 gigabytes has been occupied by the source code for the engine, but still we have to obtain the binary dependencies. These are called Git dependencies in Unreal Engine, which is a separate process. But before that, imagine if, for example, you clone the source code for the engine and you forgot to specify the branch, or you want to basically build another branch. How can you do that? Once you have this Git bash window, even if it's closed, it's fine. You go to Unreal Engine folder where you have cloned the project, and here you could right click, open Git bash here, which again opened inside my first monitor. I'm gonna drag it to the second one, and I'm gonna zoom in a bit. So here inside the basically this folder, as you can see, it shows the branch name. But if it doesn't even, you can type git branch -a, which shows all the basically branches that are available to us, like from the remote. And also here it just waits for the key, like a space key. So if I press space, I can see more branches because there are plenty of these. And once I'm at the end, if I press Q, it's gonna exit. But of course you can maximize this and again type git branch, press the space, you can see all the way to the end, and Q is gonna exit. But anyway, if I run git branch A, this one with the green color, which has a star next to it, is the current branch. You can always type git checkout branch name. For example, if I want 5.5, I'm gonna type 5.5 or 5.4 or whatever branch that you desire. But anyway, if you are not in the branch 5.6, you can type git checkout 5.6. Sometimes it's possible that you've cloned the repository partially. In that case, you can git refuses to switch the branch. You can type -f or -- it should be 2- when you type it like the whole word, which is force, -- force or -f. Then you will force Git to always check out. Also, in addition to that, for example, if I delete a file here, well, let's imagine I'm gonna delete some files here. I mess up the source code or whatever. Let's delete these files. I can always come here, type git status, because Git basically is a software that keeps track of the source and the history of the source code, so you can see what has been deleted. I can always type this command, git checkout dot, which means the current folder, and git reset -- and git clean -dfx. You can always go back to the untouched state of the code. So if I do that, basically you see all the files have been reverted and it says, hey, I'm at this commit. And if I type again git status, it says no changes, basically nothing to comment, and the working tree is clean. But also if I need to update my engine, because if I type here git log, basically it shows the last commit that I have. Also, if I go to GitHub, look at the commit, it's this one by UnrealBot 17 hours ago. And if I come here, it's the same commit like 17 hours ago with the time zone that you see here. But if I want to update, I can always git pull, and it's basically it's now says already up to date, but you can always git pull the latest code in order to update the engine to the latest version. And sometimes it's possible when you basically check out the source code, clone it, it refuses to build. If that is the case, basically what you can do, you can wait a few hours, because these kind of build issues usually get fixed quickly. You can git pull again and try to rebuild it again. But also, it is possible, if you know which commit is like making trouble, you can, for example, go to the log and find that a specific commit, for example here, like one commit before that, and you can copy it and type git checkout, for example, this commit. When I do that, it's just gonna go to that commit, as you can see, and I can basically go back in time where there was no issues, and basically start building the engine from there. Actually, if it happens, I'm gonna, because I don't know, this is really experimental, we just because it's not production ready, it could fail. If it fails, I'm gonna show you how to find the troublesome commit, go one commit earlier and build the engine. But anyway, let's git checkout 5.6, which is the head of the branch, and as you can see, it just shows it here. As I said, you can always commit it, confirm it using git branch -a, which shows which branch are you on. But anyway, now we have the sources. As I said, it's time to basically go and get the binary dependencies, which are called git dependencies in Unreal Engine. For that, I'm gonna close this window. I don't need this anymore. So what I need is like another command prompt. It is called developer command prompt for VS 2022, because we did already install Visual Studio. As I said, not like any other command prompt, like CMD does not work. Basically, this is also a command line on top of CMD, but it has basically set up everything, every environment variable for us for Visual Studio and Unreal Engine to work. So I'm gonna open this. It's gonna open this window. I'm gonna zoom in a bit, make it bigger. And as you can see, it says this is Visual Studio Developer Command Prompt. You should see this. And if you come here, of course, you have CMD, but this CMD command prompt is what that is shipped with Windows. It's not gonna work for our use case. This is a different one than this Visual Studio command prompt. So it's always then important to come here, Microsoft Visual Studio or Visual Studio or something like that. And there's the developer command prompt here, which you can always find it, or basically manually go navigate to this folder inside the start menu and run it. But anyway, now that I'm here, basically I have to switch to this window. What I can do, I can copy it, like here, click, copy, and type CD, and basically paste it with the right click, or I believe there's a paste, yeah, you can also Control V, but also right click works. Press enter, and then it will switch to that folder. But there is also another way which I can do, which is type CD, and then I can come here and drag this inside this window. It's gonna basically drag it here. And when I press enter, you see, this is a quirk with Windows. Basically, it already did switch to the folder, but it still show we are inside the drive C. The reason is because we are inside drive C, so Windows automatically does not switch to drive D. You have to basically enter like D. If I was on drive C, it would have basically gone to that folder. But now I have to manually type drive D. When I go to D, it's inside this folder. So the thing was to type D : and then enter. Then you could always CD into the folder afterward or before. It doesn't matter. But anyway, once I'm here, basically there are two important scripts. On Windows, this script is called setup.bat and generate project files.bat. On Mac, these are generate project files command and setup command. On Linux, it's called generate project files.sh and setup.sh. But anyway, on Windows, first we have to run setup.bat. If we did everything correctly, then yeah, this script should run and set up the binary dependencies. Inside this Git folder, it's going to create another folder and there basically download all the binary dependencies. And then we have to run generate project files. So I'm going to type setup, then press tab until it just auto completes the name for me, but you can also type it manually, but I use tab and always find it and then press enter. And it's gonna check the dependencies. You can always run that later. For example, if it's just unfinished, you can always continue. It's gonna resume. But here, something is going wrong, which I know what's going wrong. Basically, I have a firewall called TinyWall. I cannot show my start menu here. Basically, the notification area, I have to disable TinyWall, which is my firewall. Now, as you can see, it's disabled because probably you heard the notification. And once the firewall is disabled, it's gonna access the internet and will download the dependencies. So now it tries to establish a connection. And as you can see, now we have to download more, which takes, I don't know, another 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever. But yeah, it's just going with more speed now because GitHub was much slower, and now it's around 100 megabytes per second. But still, it's gonna take a while for this to be finished. So once that is done, basically we have all the dependencies. We could generate the Visual Studio project files and start building this inside Visual Studio. So I'm gonna leave this for now until it's finished, then we're gonna come back and pick up from basically here. Okay, here we are again. Now the setup script downloaded all the required binary dependencies, and it wants to install something on our computer which says installing prerequisites. And basically this requires admin permissions or admin privileges. So that's why you see this basically warning from Windows, which asks for permission. Probably you're not going to see it once I click on it. And when you are there, you should click on yes, because it wants to install Microsoft Visual C++ redistributable. And once that is done, basically it's gonna come back to the command line. Okay, now it's finished. Everything has been set up correctly. And I believe now is the time to generate the Visual Studio project files, which, as I've already told you, you can do that through this file on Windows and also this file .command on Mac and also .sh on Linux. But anyway, let's type ggen app and it's gonna autocomplete it for you. And you can also press it multiple times. It's gonna switch between the files until you find the correct file. And once I do that, if we already did set up Visual Studio using the configuration file that I provided inside the blog post, so you should be able to basically generate the files without any issues. So I'm gonna press enter. It's gonna basically generate using the .NET SDK, which is bundled with Unreal Engine itself. So it's gonna take a bit, but once that is finished, you should basically see the Visual Studio solution here project files. And it said some platforms were skipped, for example, Mac, iOS, Linux, whatever. You could, for example, set up also the Linux SDK, and which is also called Epic Native Toolchain, and also, for example, cross-compile from Windows to Linux. It's possible. But also, if you didn't set up the Android environment, you should see Android here as well. But I already did set up the Android environment. That's why it does not basically show Android inside this list, which means my engine will be able to deploy to Android. Now, it's done. It took like almost 46 seconds. And if you come here, we have like a UE5.sln. Okay, now if we open this, it says with which version of Visual Studio you are going to open this. I'm gonna open it with Visual Studio 2022. You can also build with Rider as well, but I'm gonna stick to Visual Studio since it's free. It does not require a license. So it's opening inside my first monitor. We wait for it a bit. And it's loading plenty of projects. It is possible to basically customize the engine build, like leave out the parts that you don't need and build only the parts that you need, because Unreal Engine is like very modular. So we could also do that. It's going to speed up the building process, but let's stick to the standard for now. And yeah, once that is done, I'm going to close this window as well. So I'm not going to sign in. And here you have the solution explorer. I'm going to basically pin it here for this to stick around. So once I'm here, basically I have plenty of projects, as you can see here, but the main project that you need and you have is this one, which is called UE5SLN. So I'm gonna close all these programs and everything else. That's the only thing, which is the engine itself that we need to build. What you can do, you can right click on it even and make it basically set up as a startup project. So once you press this start button here, it will always run this one, because by default, it's not gonna run that one. It's gonna run this gameplay graph test, whatever is that. But you want the engine to be the default project. Also, you can change it from here as well. But basically, I always do it like that. Right click on it, set as a startup project. And this should make visual. Yeah. Now the color changed to bold. Now the font. So you can see it's now the default project. It hanged like it froze for a bit. But yeah, as you can see, also I can change it from here as well. But anyway, yeah, now it's the default project. Also, this one is important, but unfortunately we cannot see it. So probably it's best to resize this. For this to work, you need to right click on this toolbar on this area, because the color is the same, you don't see it really. But for example, if I have a file open, yeah, now I can see the toolbar, much basically cleaner. If you right click here, but of course, even if the file is closed, if you right click here and press this customize here, you will come here to the toolbars, commands, extension. Go to commands, then to toolbar here, then choose, because this one is called a standard toolbar. You are going to find it, the standard toolbar. Here you have this one, which is called project setting and target system selector and build. I guess it's this one, project setting selector. No, sorry, it's this one, solution configuration. It's this one. So we are gonna modify selection. We first select it, left click, modify it. Then we're gonna assign a size to it. For example, now it's 65 pixel. I'm gonna make it 150. So a bit more than double the size. Now we can see the full text. Also, if you want, you can extend this one, but I believe I'm not gonna touch that. Support solution, basically platforms, which is the target platform. Okay, now here I'm gonna choose Win64 because my operating system is Win64, not Win64, ARM64 or something. It's Win64. I'm not building for Android either. And here also there are variants of the engine you can build. I highly recommend building with development editor, which is the default one. But for example, during my development, sometimes I prefer debug game editor. But for you, for the user, just stick to development editor because this debug, sorry, this debug is very slow. So development editor is basically kind of a balanced build. You can still debug and also you can build, but of course you cannot step through the engine code if you put a breakpoint or something. For that you need the debug game client editor, sorry. For now, let's stick to development editor. That's the default basically we go for. So once you choose these, basically this is the correct combination, development editor Win64. Now, there are multiple ways I can basically build it. One thing is like I can just press F5 to run, or I can run basically using this button here. It's gonna basically launch, but it sees the binaries are not there. It's gonna start the build process. One other thing is to right click here, click build, or there's another one which you can do, which is build solution. Apologies. If you do rebuild the solution, it's gonna rebuild everything again, which is not what you want. Once you have the engine building, you can always use the build button. If you do clean, once you have the engine that is already built, you can always clean. But here, basically, I always do it like this, right click on it and say build. But one more thing, let's check out the basically size of the engine. Now, as you can see, we have like only from my drive at the beginning, it was 476 gigabyte, but now I have only 340 gigabytes left. So we kind of have like more than 130 or 40 gigabytes of data already used. And once we build the binaries, it's going to be way more than this. So that's something that I would like you to basically take note of. Now, basically the only thing I'm going to do, I'm going to right click and press build. So it's going to start the build process. You can always pin this window here, which is the output, or you can also drag it to make it bigger or smaller the way you want. But anyway, it's gonna start the build process, and I'm gonna start the task manager to basically see, go to performance. Basically, the more CPU cores you have, the better it is, because it's gonna utilize all the cores and it's gonna basically build faster. So here I have like, I believe 32 threads, which means that I have 24 cores and 48 threads, which probably Unreal is going to only utilize, I guess, 24 of those, or maybe it was Rider, I don't remember. But anyway, it's gonna be much faster in multi-core mode. And also the memory, the more CPU cores you have, the more memory you need. So for example, if you have a CPU with 128 cores, definitely 16 gigabytes of RAM is not going to be enough. But for example, if you have a CPU with 4 cores, then yes, 16 gigabytes of RAM is enough for building. You are not going to face any challenge. But if the amount of RAM is not basically proportionally to your CPU is not enough, then you will your compiler is gonna run out of memory and you're gonna get errors. But anyway, for now, basically it's generating some files, which is called like reflection code and other stuff. So it's just gonna take a while for the build process to start. And as you can see, still my CPU is not fully utilized. But I expect this to probably take over 1 hour, maybe 2 hours. I don't know, because with the recent version of the engine, I've noticed it's really huge. But of course, I do use it in production, and I usually strip it down. For my own project, actually, I've forked Unreal Engine. I've maintained my own version, and by default, when you open it, it's not it's only builds the parts that I need, and not everything. So I think it's gonna take a while before this starts. So I'm gonna leave it here, and then once basically it's finished, we're gonna pick up from where we left off, and we will continue the rest of the tutorial. Okay, now as you can see, the build process has started, and we have over 8,000 basically files to build, and it's gonna take a while. So I'm gonna leave it for now and fast forward the video once it's finished. And this is not going to be the end of it, because probably we have some shaders to compile as well, but we'll see. So far, so good. Our engine's build process has finished successfully, and as it can be seen from the logs inside the output window, the whole process took around 38 minutes to complete, which is much shorter than the 1 hour or 2 hours that we originally anticipated. Now, although our engine's build process went successfully, imagine in a hypothetical scenario, your engine's build process fails due to a compiler issue or a linker issue or something like that. I'm going to show you how to fix such an error and build the engine in that case. For now, let's close the task manager and let's head to my computer. As you can see, before we built the engine, we had like 340 gigabytes of space. Now, after refreshing, we only have 177 gigabytes of space. So the build process took a lot of additional storage because of the binaries it produced. And basically, if we calculate the size for the engine, I believe it should be around something around now 300 gigabytes. But as I've mentioned, always aim for more storage, because you will definitely need it, especially if you are going to have multiple versions of the engine or you are going to build from source. Anyways, let's head to the engine's source folder. Okay, usually Visual Studio shows the progress inside the output window. As you can see here, for example, it shows when it's compiling or linking or copying files. Also, in addition to that, if something goes wrong, you should see inside the output window what's going to happen. For example, most of the source code inside it's inside the engine folder, and if we go up a bit inside the output window, we see more C++ files are getting compiled, and these files usually are located inside the engine source folder. And there, let's randomly pick a file inside, for example, the animgraph private folder. And let's choose this file, for example. And imagine, for example, on line 52, something goes wrong. Visual Studio usually will tell you, beside the file name, that, hey, something went wrong on line 52 and there was an error. And also it's going to list it inside the error panel. So now we have the file name. Now we know, for example, the build issue is happening because of the error inside that file name. For that, basically, we can go to the Git bash window. Inside, for example, the root of the repository, we can have a Git bash window, and there we could use the git blame command, which tells you which line of code is last modified by whom, and basically what did they do, what did they change. So also we can go directly inside that folder and there open a Git bash window. What is the difference? The difference is here you have to type only the file name. But if you start from the root of the repository, you have to also type the full path. Now let's write git blame. We have to specify the range of lines. From our example, it was, I believe, line 52. So we are going to specify line 52 to line 53, which is one line. We want to see who modified that line. And we can blame that person, for example, for that change. So let's type L, which is short for line 52 to 53. And then we have to enter the path because we are basically doing it from the root of the repository. As you can see inside engine source, it's relative to the root. So we are going to copy the file name as well from engine, source editor, and imgraph. I believe it was an blueprint extension tag.cpp. So we have to copy the file name and paste it inside the window after the path, of course. And then once we hit enter, oh, probably something in the path is wrong. It might be because of copy pasting. I think we are missing the private folder. There was also a private folder in the path. Yes. That's why it didn't work, because it cannot find the file, of course. And then we are going to paste. It still says I cannot find the file. Probably there's something in the path is wrong. So I'm going to open a window inside this folder and only enter, of course, not God, git blame -L52 to 53. And then the file name. And it should now show us when and by whom which changes happen. Okay, now here we see it was in this date and time by this person. They made a commit at this time. And then this is the commit hash that we needed to know. So also we can check from the root of the repository. Let's run it from there. I want to show you it's possible to also do it from there. Maybe if this time we correctly copy the path and then the file name, it should have the same effect. Oh, I believe I copied some content by mistake. Now I'm going to paste it. And you should be, yes, we are seeing the same output from git blame. Now, we have the commit hash. Basically what we can do here, run git log, because we want to see the previous commit. In order to do that, you just type git log and then the commit hash. And also you are going to, because we want to see the previous commit, we use the sign. I don't know even what you call that sign inside in English, but it's on the key 6. If you press shift and 6, it should appear. Okay, this is the previous commit, this one, which starts with 6.1f to the, basically this is the prior commit to the other commit, which starts with A8. But if we want to, also we can, instead of finding the previous commit, we can just put git log and the exact commit, then we can actually visually see the previous commit as well next to the current commit. So I just removed that extra character, and here, as you can see, it shows me the same commit that I pasted. Also, git blame shows the shorthand, basically shorter version of the commit. It doesn't matter because Git is able to distinguish that. It doesn't matter if you put in the whole commit or the shorter one. And also here you see it's the same commit before that one. I make it full screen for you to see it. It's the commit itself. It's the previous one, which is probably a healthy commit. We can revert to that commit using git checkout. And once we do that, all the source code goes back to that state, which is prior to the troublesome line, which caused the error. So this way you can always revert back. And then here, once you revert it back, you run setup.bat inside our developer command prompt in the root of the engine. Because the reason is the dependencies between commits could change, and then you will run the generate project files, because also the source files could be removed or added. So that's why you want to make sure you will basically regenerate the project file, and you rebuild the solution inside Visual Studio. That should solve any potential build errors. And then you can also, if for example this commit results in error, also revert back to the previous commit. Anyway, let's get rid of all the unnecessary windows, and it's time to run the engine. You can do so by clicking this button on Visual Studio's toolbar, but of course I don't want to always open Visual Studio whenever I want to run the engine. But just before we run the engine, I want to note that especially with the previous versions of the engine, it was possible to get an error. The engine were complaining it cannot compile shader or something like that. So the reason for that, there was a bug inside the engine. There's a program, it's called CompileShaderWorker. You can find it inside the programs inside the Visual Studio solution, but of course I have to collapse all these folders. I think we have to go and here maybe press the collapse all dependencies on the top level programs folder, and here look for ShaderCompileWorker. I found it. And you have to rebuild this project. You don't have to rebuild the whole engine, only this specific project. And you right click on it and just press build. It's going to build this project and then produces the binary, and you have everything for your engine to be able to compile shaders. So that's one thing I wanted to get out of the way and make sure that is built if your engine complains about. And now I can run from Visual Studio, but of course I'm not going to do that. Actually, I want to show you where the Unreal Editor executable is located. It's inside the engines folder. If we go back basically where we built Unreal Engine, inside the binaries folder, there's a Win64, and here if you type Unreal Editor, you should find this file called unrealeditor.exe, and you can even make a shortcut because you don't want to always come here and find it. And basically what I did, I just dragged it using right click and create shortcut here. That's it. That's all you need in order to run the editor. You are going to click on it. It opened on my first monitor. So I'm going to drag it here for you to see. It's currently loading. Unreal usually loads in stages. That's why it takes a bit of time to load. So now around, I guess 45% it should, or 40%, yes, it's starting to build shaders. It's going to probably take a while to build these shaders, and these shaders are usually basically sometimes you change the render, for example, from deferred rendering to forward shading. Again, it's going to compile shaders. Unreal Engine, like some of these settings basically affect the shaders, and that's why you always have to build these shaders. But yeah, probably it is going to take a while. That's why I'm going to leave it here for the engine to build, and then I'm gonna fast forward the video and then we will pick up the rest of the tutorial from where we left. Okay, I believe the shader building process is done. Now, basically, the engine is loading at the final stages of the loading of the engine we are. And okay, it's here inside basically the first monitor. It's just open this new project wizard. By the way, I've noticed basically when I was doing the penultimate part of the tutorial, which means the previous part, I've noticed that my audio was muted. So probably I'm gonna do a voiceover because I don't want to redo the whole process from the beginning. So I'm gonna do a voiceover. I'm gonna blur my face, my video, because I believe it's gonna cause confusion while basically because the audio is not going to be lip synced. So yeah, but anyway, here's the functional version of the engine. Even we could test it. For example, let's create a new project on the desktop and call it my project. Let's create, for example, a third person one, and then yeah, we can just create a new project. And again, it's open inside the first monitor. Oh, it has to basically build more shaders because that project now uses plenty of more shaders. Yeah, then we have to wait a bit. So again, I'm gonna leave this for now until the engine open up, and we're gonna hit the play button. And I think, yeah, if that works, then the tutorial is going to be done. Okay, I believe it's almost finished, and the project should now load. Okay, I see some errors. Here we can ignore this for now and then run the play button. Yeah, and we have a functional engine, and we can actually play the game, the new project that we created. So that's it. That's how basically you build Unreal Engine from source on Windows. I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial so far, and feel free if you have any questions to reach out. I'm gonna put my contact information inside the channel's description, so you can always find it there. So until next time.